Father Paul says he only wants one thing: prayers.
So just what made this process take so long? Well, it involves one of these, a printer.
But why were the bells off since November? Well, Tom Missel tells me that no one noticed. Here at St. Bonaventure University, Dr. Russell Woodruff, the head of the philosophy department, says Kirshner is just asking questions.
Fiona levying a hard charge against the counseling center, but the counseling center says they're overwhelmed with students who want to see a counselor. And you are exempted from getting a booster shot if you already have a religious or medical exemption, or if you'd had COVID in the last 90 days.
An adult male wants to have sex with a 12-year-old girl. Imagine that she's a willing participant.
These comments made recently on a podcast clip shared to Twitter by libs of TikTok, Kirshner suggests that adults can have sex with children if they are willing participants. Alexander Kellogg-Williams is a former student of Kirshner's.
I do think what he writes about, and especially, what he was talking about in that podcast, like, it enables that behavior, and that causes harm towards children.
After Kirshner's comments went viral on social media, SUNY Fredonia reassigned him to off-campus and non-teaching duties just 2 weeks into the fresh semester. The university gave Kellogg-Williams a new teacher. And Kellogg-Williams, who's had 2 classes with Kirshner, hesitant to call him what many have, a pedophile.
Even if I don't like the way he teaches or what he writes about, I don't think that there's direct causality between him writing about pedophilia and being a pedophile.
Here at St. Bonaventure University, Dr. Russell Woodruff, the head of the philosophy department, says Kirshner is just asking questions.
So basically what he's doing, in my opinion, is perfectly appropriate philosophy. He's arrived at some conclusions that I think a lot of people find striking.
However, Woodruff worries that Kirshner's views make it to the classroom.
As a teacher, he has a duty to be sensitive to that, to how what he's saying could be received by people.
I reached out to Kirshner and his lawyer, Barry Covert, multiple times this week by phone and email with no response. For SBU TV, I'm Kurt Martone.
Horror stories of them when they actually got into the wellness center, them not really helping them, or invalidating their feelings or not remembering things, or and that was for the people that got in. There's a lot of people where they couldn't get an appointment, just like me.
Students sharing what they're calling horror stories from the counseling center. Bryce suffers from depression. He was able to get an appointment, but it was canceled. He tells us his counselor was out sick.
Even just called me back and be like, hey, sorry, we want to help. I didn't even get that. They just left me hanging after that.
He says he wanted another appointment, but wasn't offered one. And the counseling center says that they did offer Bryce a later appointment that same day, but anyways, he had this to say.
I didn't really want to go to them after that.
Bryce isn't alone in his complaints.
I got in contact with this one lady, and she went over the intake forms for about 2 months, and she would forget that I filled out the intake forms and would want me to fill them out again. And I think the counseling center, they need to actually get some competent therapists.
Fiona levying a hard charge against the counseling center, but the counseling center says they're overwhelmed with students who want to see a counselor.
Right now, everybody wants individual counseling, and there's not enough time in a day to provide that to every single student who wants it.
Even though 8 to 10 students are requesting counselors each day, the counseling center has no plans to hire more staff.
So that's not really helping us anymore. It's not helping us to just continue to add counselors. There has to be something different.
For SBU TV, I'm Kurt Martone. The bells above Devereaux Hall ring once again across campus, but some students aren't happy.
As soon as they got turned back on, I started getting woken up at 10:30 over the weekend, and it was this never happened before. And also, since when are the bells back?
But why were the bells off since November? Well, Tom Missel tells me that no one noticed.
It's just hard to believe here. Nobody noticed it. So it didn't come to anybody's attention until they started malfunctioning last week.
Here's the electronic system that controls all the bells across campus. This system short-circuited in November, which turned the bells off above Dev. You may remember that 10-second long power outage on campus last week. That was caused by a power surge which reignited that electronic system and turned the bells back on. That surge turned the bells back to their factory settings, running from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day at 80 decibels. After I sent the school an email, the bells were changed to ring starting at 9 a.m. on the weekdays and noon on the weekends. Tongs also reduced to ring at 65 decibels.
I love hearing the bells when I walk around campus. I love hearing them go off. I think at 6 o'clock when they play their long little tongs, it's really nice and I like hearing them. But maybe Saturday at 9 a.m., I'm not as in love with them.
For SBU TV, one last time, I'm Kurt Martone. New lights, new carpet, a fresh coat of paint, more exposed marble. Those just some of the projects the university has started as part of their Capital Gains project in Doyle Chapel.
It is the center of the campus. It is the logo of the campus. It is, a significant place where significant things happen, period.
The developments will also revitalize the chapel confessionals, which will return to their proper function after years of serving as storage closets. New chairs and a new ambo also in store. Here's a look at the renderings. On your left is the pastor's chair. All the other chairs will be a toned-down version of that. And also some bigger projects. The patch of exposed marble in the back of the chapel set to become a permanent baptistry with a tub big enough for the presider and the person getting baptized to fit in. The altar rails that no longer sit at the front of the chapel will help enclose that new setup. And the reredos getting a fresh set of paint over the summer. The paint has faded through years of display, and you can barely make out what should be St. Francis's hand on this shot. And the only paint that hasn't faded much, these bright blue sparkles.